Adam, I know it doesn't feel like it, but they're on their way.
It was a little chilly last night, so I believe it's coming.
The fall is in the air. But the problem is people need money to buy gifts for loved ones.
And they got a list. Unless you're listing, people can't buy it if it's not on the internet.
If you're looking to make some money and you're looking to make it fast, you got that death pile of clothing. Sellhound is for you.
We've got some good friends over there. Suzanne, she's been helping us out.
She's been liking our videos. I don't know if you've seen over on our YouTube page, but she's been making comments. She loves us, Adam. I don't know what we did right, but she loves us.
It's because you brought up Gene Simmons. That's why.
It didn't hurt.
Well, our friends at Sellhound are giving you a special offer. If you go on there, sign up for an account, it'll help you to get your clothing items, your death pile. It'll help you to get listed a lot faster, which means more sales.
I mean, your clothing, your shoes, your women's handbag, purse type items.
I know you got a lot of those, so let's help you out. Let's get those items listed. Derek, how can they qualify for that?
Well, first off, they're going to let you do your first 3 for free. Just try it out and see if you like it, learn how it works. So you can't beat free.
You're out of nothing.
Everyone knows if they're going to do it for free, you're going to get hooked.
If it's free, it's for me.
After that, you just put in Death Piles, all capitalized, Death Piles 25, and you'll get 25% off whatever subscription you decide to go with.
That sounds like a wonderful deal to help you make more money. And like I said, that's what they're all about, is helping you get that bottom line so you can enjoy the things you want to enjoy.
Get some holiday cash.
Here comes the money. Here comes the money. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money,
That was scary. Welcome, Death Piles and Taxes listeners. This is episode, I don't even know whatever. It's just that time of weirdness here, Derek.
It's that time of year, and here we are, Death Piles and Taxes. But Adam, you must be living right or something.
I'm always living right. I know you were trying to spook me out. I know last year you made me talk about the morgue, where I lived up in college. And luckily, I don't have to do that again this year.
It was supposed to be a special podcast. I had us a guest lined up that was going to come spook the pants off of you, but it all fell through, so hate to disappoint those listeners.
Well, then we can talk about more important things today, like making money and taxes. Because everybody wants to know about taxes, right, Derek?
Oh, everybody loves tax talk.
Tax talk is amazing. I know we want to get into the new tax laws, depreciation. Oh, my goodness.
Adam, what kind of a show are we running here?
I know you always talk about making me turn off the phone, but I'm sorry.
This happens like every other week. What kind of a professional are you?
Why does this say Death Piles and Taxes on the caller ID?
What?
It says Death Piles and Taxes on the caller ID.
You better answer that.
I better answer this, because I don't know how you did this. Yeah. Hello? Hello?
This is Celeste. I just heard you say you lost a Halloween guest. Maybe I can help. Adam, hand the phone over to Derek and go home, because what I have to say you won't want to hear.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely do that.
Well, Celeste, I guess you got our attention here.
These are true stories at the request of the survivors. The names have been changed. Out of respect, the story will be told exactly as it occurred. Listener discretion is advised.
Goosey, goosey gander, wherever shall I wander? Upstairs and downstairs and in my lady's chamber. There I met an old man who wouldn't say his prayers. So I took him by his leg and threw him down the stairs.
This is the freakiest thing that has ever happened to me. My friends and family live in different parts of the country, and every so often I go on road trips to visit them. Okay, I have to tell you, I am obsessed with thrift shopping, so I will sometimes plan out a route that lets me hit up a bunch of small towns thrift stores and see if I can score any vintage gems. It makes the traveling part of these trips much more fun. While I also do a little bit of flipping on the side, on eBay and Poshmark, mostly, I also always look for myself. My collection of vintage dresses and hats and jewelry is absurd. It's really an addiction, folks. This was in the summer, and I had just dyed my hair a reddish auburn from its usual blonde. I was really feeling the new look and excited about how different colors and styles might work with it. I set up a route through certain small town thrift stores that I had read about online. I had already made a few cool scores on the first and second day before visiting my sister. After that, I headed further south. This is where the story gets crazy. I was in the middle of nowhere, heading to a small town, which had a large church-affiliated thrift store I planned to spend a few hours at. When I arrived in the parking lot, I had a good feeling just because of how huge the store was. I walked in, and within about 5 minutes, I started finding the most amazing vintage, late 70s, early 80s clothes, all kind of clustered together and all very feminine. Knit skirts, flowy floral dresses, little sweaters, blouses. When I tried them on, they all fit perfectly, which is kind of amazing. Often I have to alter vintage stuff. I was convinced that these outfits must have belonged to the same person, because they were all of such a distinctive quality and era. I was super excited and looked through every rack in the store to see if I could find anything else that was similar. And I did find a few more items, like a vintage straw purse, but most of the store was completely contemporary t-shirts and kids' clothes. So these amazing vintage pieces really stood out. They were also super cheap, like $4 a dress. Mega score. I had spent so long there that I decided that this was the town where I was going to spend the night. I ordered takeout, got a hotel room, and spent the evening eating and trying on different outfits, and playing around with the accessories while a movie was on in the background. In addition to being the freakiest thing that ever happened to me, this also remains my best thrift haul ever. The next morning, I was so excited to wear what I considered the star of my thrift haul, a sort of little house on the prairie-esque long floral dress with slight puff sleeves. I felt like some kind of casual daytime princess wearing it. So I clipped my newly auburn hair to the side, put my phone and lip balm in the just acquired straw purse, and after packing up the car, headed out to get breakfast somewhere. This was one of those towns that had a diner where everyone goes in the morning. The parking lot was jam-packed. I figured they would have pretty good coffee, so I decided this was going to be my goodbye to the place that gave me such awesome additions to my wardrobe. I pushed the glass doors and walked in, and you know that feeling when it seems like everyone is staring at you? As soon as I stepped inside, the place, which had been buzzing with different voices, noticeably dropped and felt all of these eyes on me. It wasn't the usual let's gawk at a pretty girl sort of thing either. It felt different, almost unfriendly. It was unnerving, but a sign said please seat yourself, so I slid into a booth and picked up a menu. I was contemplating my order when the waitress came over, an older woman in her probable late 60s. "Coffee, honey?" she said. I put down the menu, looked up with a smile, and said, "Yes, please." I've never seen the color drain from someone's face before, but when I looked up at her, I saw her lips go white. She screamed and dropped the coffee pot she was holding, which smashed into the floor, hot coffee and glass going everywhere. And she kept screaming, over and over, staring right at me. I was stunned. Eventually, someone took her by the arm and ushered her away toward the kitchen, where I could still hear her screaming. Every single person in the diner was staring at me now. A mother got up and clutched her children's faces against her, as if they couldn't look at me, and left the diner. Other people were getting up and leaving too, and one woman made the sign of the cross, staring at me, before she did. I didn't move. I started saying, "I'm sorry," which didn't make sense because of course I had done nothing wrong. But no one looked at me like they were going to offer any encouraging words. I was going to get up and leave myself, but with all the other people still going through the door, I just sat there. From the back kitchen came an older man who from his apron appeared to be the short order cook. He brought me a mug of coffee and stared right at me. "Sorry about that, ma'am," he said. "She's just had a death in the family and isn't herself." He stood there for a few seconds just looking at me while I tentatively sipped the coffee, still in shock, and then he said, "Do you mind me asking your name?" I told him, and his face seemed to visibly relax. "So it's not Franny." I told him it most certainly was not Franny. He stood there, still looking at me intently. I could see from his face that he was quite old, older than I first thought, "Because you look a lot like her." And he gestured toward my dress. "That's her May Queen outfit." I looked down in confusion at my little house on the prairie dress. I told him that I had just bought it at the thrift store in town the day before. He nodded, like that made sense, and asked for my order, saying it would be on the house. I could still hear the woman in the kitchen, who was crying and moaning now, no longer screaming. So I made my order, and he came back with a mop and quickly cleaned up the mess near my foot, and soon brought out my pancakes and eggs. The noise in the diner went up a little, as the remaining diners began talking to each other again, and a few new ones came in, but I could still see them shooting furtive glances at me. Eventually, I realized I could no longer hear the waitress crying, although she never came back into the diner area. As I finished my meal, the short order cook asked if he could sit down with me. I nodded. He asked me where I was from, and I told him, and what I was doing in this town. We don't get a lot of visitors here, and I told him. I asked him what he meant when he asked if my name was Franny. He never took his eyes off me as he spoke. He told me that over 30 years ago, a sweet, pretty girl, my niece actually, that looked very much like you, was murdered, strangled, and her body found in a nearby field. No one was ever charged, he said, although some people suspected her on-and-off boyfriend, but no evidence was ever found. She had been the May Queen earlier in the town's parade in the months before she died and was going to go to college in the fall, but never got the chance. The whole town never forgot her or her murder. My wife, he gestured toward the kitchen, where the waitress has gone, just lost her older sister, who was Franny's mother, a few weeks ago. So she's a little skittish right now. And, well, seeing you is a little like seeing a ghost. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, I'm sorry. We realized that Franny's clothes, which her mother had kept all these decades, must have recently been donated to the thrift store after she died. That was why there were so many great vintage outfits that fit me so well. It is strange also to think that if I hadn't just dyed my hair, I probably wouldn't have made nearly the same impression, as Franny's hair had been reddish auburn too. Can I ask you a favor, he asked, as our conversation seemed to be wrapping up. Okay, I said. You see that auto shop on the corner? He pointed a gnarled finger through the diner window toward a sign I could only partly make out. Yes, I said. If you don't mind, I'd really like to walk with you into that shop and say hello to the owner. For some reason, I didn't ask further questions, but just said okay. He nodded and got up, getting a younger guy from the kitchen to come out to the diner while he was gone, then grabbed his coat, and together we walked, without talking, toward the nearby auto shop. I could feel everyone in the diner looking at us as we left. When we were close enough to be going inside the shop, I asked, Who are we meeting? Franny's boyfriend, he said grimly. And without thinking, I walked forward as he held the door open for me. There was no one in the room when we stepped inside. The short order cook immediately walked up to the empty front desk and rang a bell there, and we waited. Shortly after, a man came from the back garage area. He was portly, bald, and in his probable mid-50s, wiping his hands with a rag. Hi, Randall, the cook said. Something about how he said the name Randall seemed weighted with meaning. The man looked surprised, but nodded. Then he looked at me. Never as long as I live will I forget his face. As he stared at me, his expression changed to one of pure horror. He said several profanities. Then he closed his eyes and wiped the rag over his face, which left a dark grease mark on his forehead. When he opened his eyes again, he repeated. Looking at me, he cursed again. Then he said, Franny? We hadn't talked about what I was supposed to do or say, so I just nodded. He started trembling all over, then weeping, saying, Forgive me, Franny, forgive me. He fell to his knees. The cook took my arm, and we turned around and walked out, leaving him there. When we were back close to the diner again, the cook turned to me and said, Maybe not good enough for the law, but good enough for me. Thank you. I told him I was going to leave now, and he said, Just one thing. Wait here. So I waited outside near my car, wondering what was next. When he came out, he handed me a paper bag. Thank you again, he said, and then we hugged, which was unexpected and nice. I saw that there were tears in his eyes when he pulled back. He stood outside the diner and waved at me as I drove away. Once I got to a stoplight, I opened the bag. It was an egg salad sandwich, a pickle, each wrapped in plastic, and a bag of chips. Sometimes I still can't believe all that really happened. The rest of the trip passed in a blur of visiting and thrifting. I told everyone I spent time with about what happened, and they could hardly believe it. But it is true. Every single word of it. Not that long ago, I happened to put on one of the knit skirts from the vintage haul. Yes, I still wear all the clothes. They are lovely after all, and I realized there was a pocket I hadn't noticed. I stuck my hand in it, and out came a piece of paper. It was a dry cleaning slip with the date 3/1979, and at the bottom was written in bubbly blue script, Francesca. I keep it in my jewelry.
Listeners, it's DeathPiles and taxes, and it's that spooky kind of time of year. Halloween's coming, and I tell you one thing that's always scary, and that's filing your taxes. It doesn't have to be anymore. Like I said, here at Adam Upper County, we're happy to help you out. We've done this forever. We know all the loopholes. We know the things that you should and shouldn't do. We've kept Derek out of trouble for a while, and that's a scary thing. I still can't believe it, right, D-Roy?
I mean, I haven't died yet, so that's always a plus. And I have not been in Al Capone's penitentiary, pal, or whatever you want to call it.
We won't ever let you go back there again. Like I said, add to DeathPiles and taxes. You know, we got a special opportunity. Like I said, we want to make sure we help take care of our listeners. Adam Upper County, we're going to get your taxes done. It's getting close to that time of year. So as this year ends, make sure you know that taxes are due. You're going to have to do them every year, including the year that you die.
Someone's always watching me. Someone's always there. When I'm sleeping, he just waits and he stares. Someone's always standing in the darkest corner of my room. He's tall and wears a suit of black, dressed like the perfect groom. Where are you going? Why won't you stay? They might be scared of you, but I just want to play. He has no face. He hides with the trees. He loves little children when they beg and scream. Please.
Welcome back from that spooky break. I have one more story I think you will enjoy. Don't buy anything from an estate sale. Last week I was walking through my neighborhood with my 6-year-old daughter when we encountered an estate sale. I thought to myself that this was a great opportunity to teach my girl a lesson. Everything can have a second life. Not everything has to be bought new and then thrown away when it's no longer needed. As they say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. We were greeted by a young man. He was very kind and very sweet. My daughter asked if there were any toys. Sadly, there was not. All the stuff there had belonged to his mother, an 80-year-old woman. To cheer her up, I told her that I would buy her anything she wanted, but only one item. She could choose whatever she wanted. She smiled and ran away, trying to find a treasure. I walked and looked at plates, cabinets, clothes, thousands of old magazines, mugs from gift shops. I thought to myself that my daughter wouldn't want anything from here. Everything was very tacky, and I didn't mean disrespect. Even the owner's son thought so. That's why he wanted to get rid of it. As he called it, that old crap. My daughter called me from the other side of the sale.
Mommy?
Mommy, I want that, she said while pointing her finger. I turned around and I saw the ugliest painting I've ever seen. Are you sure, honey? I asked in shock. about the decision. Yes, the old lady told me that it brings good luck, she answered. Who told you that? I questioned. She looked around for the old lady, but she couldn't find her. I assumed she must have just left the place. I didn't want that painting in my house, but I promised her she could take anything. So I grabbed the painting and we headed to the front. When the young man saw the painting, his face brightened with a smile. He told us that the painting was his mom's favorite. Apparently, when she got older and could barely move, she would just sit on her couch and stare at the painting for hours. In that case, I insisted he could keep the painting to remember his late mother. It sounded like it was special to her, but he strongly insisted for us to take it. He even gave us a discount. It seemed a bit weird that he really didn't want to keep it if it was his mom's favorite. We arrived home and I told my daughter to decide where in her bedroom she wanted it to be hung. The only thing I could think of was that my husband would tell me off for buying that horrible painting when he sees it tomorrow, when he arrived home from a business trip. Later that night, I gave my daughter a goodnight kiss and sent her to bed. A bit later, I too headed to bed. A few hours later, when I was sleeping very deeply, a little voice woke me up.
Mommy.
It was my daughter standing next to me. Mommy, can I sleep with you? She asked with a trembling voice. Sure, I said while putting her in bed with me. Then I asked something I shouldn't have asked. What's wrong? It's the old lady, Mommy, she said. I cannot stay in my room. My eyes opened widely. What old lady? What was she talking about? I asked her and she described an old woman and said again she kicked her out of her room. I quickly got up and told her to stay there. I grabbed a baseball bat that I keep under my bed and I slowly walked to my daughter's room. The door was slightly ajar. I carefully pushed the door and opened it gradually. There she was, an old woman standing in front of the painting, her back towards me. I screamed at her. She didn't move. She kept staring at the painting. I yelled again. She did nothing. I threatened her, but she acted as if I wasn't there. I moved closer to her. I extended my hand to grab her shoulder and make her turn. When I was just a few inches from her, I felt something pulling on my t-shirt. I panicked and looked down quickly. It was my daughter.
Mommy?
I looked up at the woman again, but she was gone. I thought to myself that this was just a hallucination. It was late at night, and sometimes your brain plays tricks on you. I asked my daughter what she was doing there. I told you to stay in my bedroom. She said that the old woman got in my bed and pushed her out. She said that this is her home now, and we should leave. I ran into my bedroom, but nobody was there. Maybe it's all my child's imagination. Suddenly, a big loud crash shook me from my thoughts. It came from my girl's room. It was the painting, the old ugly painting. It was on the floor. The glass was broken and scattered all over the floor. I know it was late and dark, but I swear this is all true. I saw blood, a small puddle of blood. It wasn't my blood, or my daughter's. It came from it, the painting. It was bleeding. My daughter started to freak out. I don't blame her. I was scared as hell, but being a mother, I had to be the responsible one. So I did what everybody in my situation would have done. I left. I lifted my kid, grabbed my car keys, and went to my brother's place. We are spending the night there. I hope you enjoyed the stories. Maybe I can call you back next year. Only 2 things are for certain: DeathPiles and taxes.
Sorry, the number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number and dial again. S-P-O-K.
Don't you ever laugh as a hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. They wrap you up in a big white sheet from your head